Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael, and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Godzilla Moon in the Off My Chest subreddit. The post is titled, "My stepdaughter wants her real dad to give her away. My stepdaughter will be getting married on August 3rd. The wedding planning has consumed most of her and her mother's life for the past 6 months. My stepdaughter graduated last December from university. I paid for her to go to college. Although it was a state school, it still cost $40K. She does not have a job and has been living with us for the duration of her college career and since her graduation. I also bought her a car to get back and forth from school when she finished high school. From time to time, her deadbeat father would pop into her life and she would fawn all over him. Although he has not contributed a cent to her education or paid any child support, she still loves him and wants him in her life. He stays long enough to break her heart by skipping town and breaking some promise he made her. The wedding venue holds a maximum of 250 people. I gave them a list of 20 people that I wanted invited since I was paying for everything. They told me that was no problem and they'd take care of it. So I let these people know they'd be getting an invite and should save the date. On Saturday, I saw one of my friends on this list at the golf course and asked if he was coming. He told me that he wasn't invited. He mentioned that he received an announcement but not an invitation. He had it in his back seat and showed it to me. Sure enough, it was just an announcement and my name was nowhere on it. It had her dad's name and her mom's name, but not mine. This led to a pretty big fight with my girlfriend, as I found out that none of my list of 20 made the cut for the final guest list because 250 people is very tight. I was pissed, but there wasn't much I could do because the important people in my life had already been offended. My girlfriend said if some people didn't RSVP yes, I might be able to get a couple more people in, but that felt like an ultimate slap in the face in my opinion. So I was boiling on Saturday. Yesterday, we had a Sunday dinner with the future in-laws family and us, along with a surprise guest, the real dad. At this little dinner, my stepdaughter announced that her real dad was going to be able to make it to her wedding and that now he'd be able to give her away. This was greeted with a chorus of "Oh, how great" and "How wonderful." I don't think I've ever felt so angry and disrespected. I was shaking. I took a few seconds to gather my composure because I honestly wasn't sure if I would cry or start throwing punches or both. Once I was sure I'd be able to speak, I got up from my chair and said I'd like to make a toast. I can't remember exactly what I said, but the gist of it was this. I'd like to make a toast. The sound of spoons against glasses rings in my ears. It has been my great pleasure to be a part of this family for the past 10 years. Ah, how sweet. At this point in my life, I feel I owe a debt of gratitude to the bride and groom because they have opened my eyes to something very important. Confident smiles are exchanged. They have shown me that my position in this family is not what I once thought it was. Now a glimmer of confusion and shock begins to spread across the faces in the room. Though I once thought of myself as the patriarch or godfather of the family, commanding great respect and being sought out for help in times of need, it seems instead that I hold the position of an ATM, good for a stream of money but not much else. As I've been replaced as host both on the invitations and in the ceremony, I am resigning my financial duties as host to my successor, real dad. So cheers to the happy couple and the path they have chosen. I finished my drink. You all can let yourselves out. Is this selfish? Am I supposed to shell out $40K to $50K for a wedding that I can't invite anyone to, that I am not a part of? I'm so done with this crap. I'm done with my stepdaughter. I'm done with my girlfriend. I transferred the money out of our joint account last night. This morning, I called all the vendors to whom I had written checks for deposits to refund my money. At present, it looks like I'll lose around $5K for the venue, but the other vendors have been great about refunding update 1. The immediate aftermath was filled with tantrums and people sitting there mumbling while not actually saying anything to me but to each other. After much yelling with my girlfriend about me being selfish, I spent the night in my home office and no one knocked on my door, not once. Today's aftermath is kind of depressing for me. My girlfriend brought me the bride's wedding planner to show me how much work I was ruining. I thumbed through it and found a page in the music section for father-daughter dances. All of the songs were catered to real dad's taste. I thought they were just being disrespectful, but now I'm feeling like they never really cared at all, especially since the menu included 2 ingredients I'm allergic to, which actually made me laugh. Either way, I'm glad to be done. I returned the planner and asked her when she and the bride could move out. Also, I never promised to pay for the wedding. I offered them the use of my home when they were sure it was going to be small. But other than that, all I've heard is how it's the bride's family that should pay. So let it be the bride's family then, aka not me. Final update. My girlfriend and the bride have now moved out. They are moving in with the groom. It was very hard not to be petty about some of the belongings they took with them, but it's done and I switched out the locks. Now it's time for a brew. I can't believe how popular this story got, but I feel good to have received support from so many people. If I find out what happens with the wedding, I will let you know, but I can't guarantee that I will put in the effort to find out. From what I've heard, they are trying to scale things back and get his parents to help out. My girlfriend burned bridges when I found out she tried to write herself a check on our joint account the day after the unpleasantness. By then, I had already moved the money, so I guess I'm a bigger ass than she is, but I could feel it coming. That's all. Thanks. User CrossMad's Heart said, "Don't bite the hand that feeds you or funds your wedding. While I feel for OP and how devastating that must be, something tells me there's more to the story than what's being said. The main issue is that the daughter didn't communicate. Is she an entitled brat, or was OP not a good father figure? I also know that not everyone wants to get married, but why would anyone be so financially invested in a relationship and not put a ring on it? The dynamics here are whack." User Striking Ad said, "I agree that OP was taken advantage of, but I'm thrown off by the part where he expects to be her father and walk her down the aisle. It sounds like she was in her early to mid-teens when they got together." This next post was made in the AITAH subreddit by a user named Efficient Wedding. The post is titled AITAH for not telling my dad I got rejected by college on the day the result came out. My mom passed away when I was a very young kid, so it's been just me and my dad ever since. We're not originally from the States. My dad came here to do his PhD and I was born right after he finished. So it's really only me and dad. We don't have family here. I don't have any memories of my mom, and my dad has been busting his butt for me ever since. My dad's super brainy, and he kind of expected me to be just as brainy as he is. At school, I skipped 3rd grade, and they wanted me to skip 4th too, but my dad wasn't down for the double skip. They stuck me in the gifted program. You can imagine my dad had these crazy high hopes for me, but I'm just a regular kid who hit some milestones early. I'm graduating high school this year and applying to colleges. My stats are decent, and I've been grinding, but they're not as stellar as my dad would have hoped. I've tried talking to him multiple times about not being Ivy League material or a candidate for other top schools, but he's not having it, especially since he went to the top school for his PhD. Anyway, 2 results from my applications are out, and I didn't get into either. My dad's beyond disappointed. There are still 6 more colleges I've applied to. Now he's listing off the names of my friends and his friends' kids, checking where they're studying or planning to study, and he keeps comparing me to them. He's said so many times that he can't wrap his head around why I, with all this supposed potential, haven't gotten into anywhere yet, like I must be lazy or something. I'm crushed about letting my dad down. He's the person I love the most in the world, and I feel like our relationship will never be the same again. Update. I am a senior in high school and applying to colleges. I applied to 8 colleges and received 3 rejections, 2 of which I thought I would get into. The other 5 are much harder, and I already know it's pretty much certain I'll be rejected from 2 of them. My dad is really disappointed with my results. He's so disappointed that he went to school to talk to my counselor and called me lazy in front of him. My friends are getting into good colleges, which makes my dad even madder at me. I thought my stats were enough to get into college. I'm ranked 3rd in my class, scored 1580 on the SAT, took 4 AP exams and got 5s on all of them, am captain of the sports team I play for, founded a volunteer project that raised $30K, and have done other stuff too. Since I know my dad is really mad at me, this week the result of another college I thought I'd get into came out, and I got rejected. I didn't tell my dad right away because I didn't have the courage. I didn't want to see him even sadder about me. I waited for the best time to tell him, but when I did, he didn't find out from someone else. He wasn't too happy that I took so long to tell him. Also, this week, my best friend since I was 8 got a likely letter from Harvard, meaning he'll probably get in. We're both only children. He's like a brother to me, and I can't imagine my life without our friendship. I was so happy for him, and we were supposed to spend today together to celebrate, but my dad banned me from leaving the house and using the car. He said it's because of my behavior in not trusting him by not immediately telling him about the application results, and that I need to reflect on what I've done throughout all the years in school and getting these results. So on the happiest day of my best friend's life, who grew up with me, who's like a brother, whose parents always took care of me as if I were their son, my dad is prohibiting me from being with him. Was I such an asshole for not telling him immediately? I think my dad overreacted. Edit, my dad is a high achiever, he has a PhD from a top school and is very smart. My mom died when I was 3 years old, so my dad raised me alone. Final update. First of all, I want to thank you all for the support I received from you. You guys were really cool and made me feel calmer at a time when I was very sad. Yesterday, my dad came into my room and for the first time in my life, he apologized to me. He said he loves me very much, regardless of any outcome, and that his behavior in recent times has not been right. He hugged me and said that I was the most important thing in the world to him. I think my dad did this also because today the MIT results were coming out, which is one of the colleges I applied to as a reach. And I got in. I got into MIT. I opened the result and it was just me and my dad here in front of the laptop. It was the most exciting feeling of my life. We hugged and cried. I'm going to study at MIT. User the comment said, the hardest kind of abusive parents are the ones that actually try. You can tell they love you and that they're trying, but it's never enough to mitigate the pain they put you through. To this user, Scander said, God, this is so true. You know their intentions are good and they're not trying to be cruel, but they end up causing so much damage because they refuse to learn or think they know best. User Abstruse said, I really hope this kid gets into therapy. His father is an abusive, controlling jerk and he has no other frame of reference to realize this. He's going to hit MIT like he's running into a brick wall because of gifted kid burnout. This next post was made in the relationship advice subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled, My aunt is taking me to court after my mother's died. She's accusing me of killing my mother. A few months ago, my mother killed herself. I am her only son. My parents are divorced and I had not seen my mother for a long time because I was living in Asia teaching English. I promised my mother that I would visit her when I returned home. But about half a month before I came home, my grandfather on my dad's side became very ill and wouldn't live much longer. My mother told me I should visit my father first because of this. I should also add that during this time and for the past few years, I was very, very depressed and had some mental and physical health problems that would not improve. I really wanted to be at my dad's house where I felt comfortable and recover for some time. When I got home, my grandfather passed away on the day I arrived and I was not feeling well enough to travel at all, so I stayed with my father for a few weeks. Later, my mother told me she would visit her parents in a few weeks. I debated visiting her at that time, but I wasn't sure I would be feeling well enough to travel again. My grandmother called me and asked me to come at that time, but I told her I would have to think about whether I could come then. Eventually, I decided that I would visit them at the same time as my mother. The night I arrived at my grandparents' house was one night before my mother and aunt would arrive. That night, my aunt called us and told us that my mother had just killed herself and they found her body at her apartment in the afternoon. I was driving home from the airport at that time. I remember that night so vividly. I could not sleep and was crying so hard that my body hurt. My aunt arrived a few days later and we stayed together for some time. I noticed my grandmother's behavior was quite unusual at this time, and my mother had mentioned previously that she was beginning to show some symptoms of dementia. However, both my aunt and grandmother were not hostile to me during this time. They seemed like they wanted to stick together and get through it as a family. After about a week, I returned to my father's home and stayed there. I was an emotional mess for the following month. I had a lot of trouble remembering simple things and felt exhausted all the time. Eventually, I began to feel better and started to move things forward with my mother's probate and planning my own life when my grandmother and aunt called me to tell me that this is my fault and you killed your mother. I was absolutely shocked to hear them say this. They accused me of not calling her enough, not wanting to visit her, and only caring about her money, etc. They even insulted my father. Relatives from my father's side called me to help me through this, but I have not spoken to my aunt or grandmother since this incident. I know both my grandmother and aunt feel immense guilt for my mother's death, especially my aunt, since it was she who suggested my mother come to live near her, and my mother hated living in that area. Today, I received an email from my aunt that told me I would have to go to court. It simply stated that I should call this lawyer. I am so hurt that this is how they decided to handle a tragedy like this. It's so difficult for me to think clearly, and I can't believe that this is how they chose to behave. Any advice would be appreciated. I feel like I missed a lot of details, so feel free to ask me questions if need be. Edit. I should clarify that I don't know the actual legal accusation. She accused me of those horrible things while on the phone. Edit 2, one comment mentioned it, but I just want to say that I don't believe they are after money. They genuinely believe I am a horrible person and a horrible son, so they wish to hurt me. Edit 3, thank you for all the responses. I have read all of them and they gave me a lot of confidence to keep moving forward. I did take the advice to post on Legal Advice subreddit, so I'll update everyone on how this situation unfolds. Thanks again. User over Easy NPC said, if your aunt is taking you to court, please don't call the lawyer she suggested. Don't respond to the email and don't talk to her. She's not on your side in this. Consult with your father and your father's side of the family. I'm not sure what they could take you to court for. User Beef Squatch Jean said, your grandmother and aunt are trying to get any money they can out of your mother's death. They see you as an obstacle to that. Do not respond to anything other than a court summons, and if you do receive one, contact a lawyer. Other than that, proceed with your responsibilities via probate court to handle your mother's estate in accordance with the law and her wishes. If your mother indicated that any of her assets should be dispersed to anyone other than those legally entitled, she would have made it known. Do not talk to these horrific people. They've shown you exactly who they are.